Hello everyone, I am Chandrika from Lawyered Business Outreach team, and I am here today will be doing the moderation for today's webinar, and I hope all of you are keeping safe and sound at your places. So today, with a brief introduction of the very special guest, Mr. Varun Pepperadi, to start with his brief introduction. He is a professional with 15 years of experience in leadership roles in diverse sectors across consumer loans, property legal opinions, fintech, NBFCs, payments and e-commerce, paralegal services, family law and startups. And with 45 years of combined experience with his father, he provides expert solution in property, land revenue, and all civil matters in Bangalore, including NRI property and divorce services. Over experience and his experience and qualified team of professionals provide end-to-end solutions to financial institutions, law firms, attorneys on the legal front, including title derivations to concluding the registration process and submission of the asset documents to the banker. With technological supplements, he also provides high quality legal and recovery services to their clients. He has successfully translated skills learned over multiple diverse domains to establish a proven track record of delivering strong results. With this, I welcome Mr. Varun. First of all, thank you so much, sir, for making yourself available for this very important session on Hindu matrimonial laws. So over to you, sir. I request you to brief us about this topic and your viewpoints on this particular session.
Thank you, Chandrika. Thank you for the introduction. Today I would be talking about Hindu matrimonial laws. First of all, about myself, I'm Varun. I'm from Bangalore, and I'm a lawyer. I'm a practicing advocate, and today I would be talking about Hindu matrimonial laws. To start off with this particular subject, it is quite generic if I have to tell you, because over the past few years, if we have seen the divorce cases in Bangalore, it is increased quite a lot, and which is one of the main concerns or the main areas of practice which most of the advocates are doing. Now, if we see the trend in which the family laws have been growing, or the family cases have been growing in Bangalore, uh, somewhere down the lane, approximately in 2014-15, we had about 752,000 cases in a year, which was filed. So then, as and when the years goes by, it normally increases to probably double the number or triple the number. But in the recent times, even if I take it at the last year, that is 2019 and 20, we're close to around more than 15,000 cases which are filed. So that is a drastic increase in the number of cases. And more than that, I would say it is a big eye opener for people, because they need to understand what exactly is this family laws all about, what all does it cover, and how safe you can be. That is one of the main things. Okay, now starting with the matrimonial laws. Uh, the matrimonial laws is basically covered with respect to the family laws. Now, family laws has uh, it talks about divorce, it talks about maintenance, it talks about alimony, it talks about your child custody, it talks about restitution of conjugal rights, which is also a part of divorce, but again, it is more to asking the court to reconcile the couple. So that is about that one. And along with that, you have such certain criminal cases also, which is linked to a family law, which is the best example I would say is the domestic law or the domestic violence. This domestic violence section as such comes in CRPC, that is Criminal Code of CRPC is Criminal Code Procedure. Now, in CRPC, since it comes there, though it is a criminal case, we don't treat it like a criminal case, but however, we call it as a criminal miscellaneous case, which is linked to a family court. So hence, though it has the ingredients of a criminal law, it does act like a normal case of a family law. So you don't get arrest or bail or anything of that sort when you talk about domestic violence, just like the way criminal law works for. Now going to the types of divorces, which is there. Now in family law, we have three types of divorce. We have mutual consent divorce, we have the contested divorce, and we have the judicial separation. Now, in mutual consent divorce, this is a divorce in which both the husband and wife, both of them, with their own consent, with their own acceptance, they come to the court and come down and they will file for a mutual consent divorce, which will last for about 6.5 months in Bangalore. Well, it depends on every state to state with respect to the duration. Now, the court gives a duration of around 6.5 months, reason being that the court makes it an effort for the couple, if there is any chance of reconciliation among them and not promoting divorce everywhere. So we call it as a statutory period as per the law, which is 6 months from the date of filing. Post which, after the date, you've been asked to come to the court, wherein you will be asked whether you would like to reconcile or you would like to go for a divorce, which will be decided over a mediation, wherein a counselor would be assigned to you all and you can take it forward. If you'd like to go for a divorce, the case would close then and there itself. If you would like to go for a reconciliation, it's a wonderful thing. So you can go for a reconciliation as well. But the entire process would take about 6.5 months. But however, recently in 2017, there was a judgment passed in the Supreme Court of India, which is a reported judgment, which is ideally can be used in all the courts all over India, which was between Amardeen Kaur and Hardeen Kaur, which said that if there is a particular obligatory situation or if there is any reason to reduce the statutory period, or if there is no chance to have a reconciliation and or the judgment has to go quickly, then that particular 6 months of statutory period can be relaxed. But this is a judgment which is passed stating that it is based on the discretion of the lower court judge. So in that ways, we need to come up with a strong reason, or if there is a genuine reason for which we need to waive off the 6 months of statutory period, then yes, we can go ahead and waive off the six months of statutory period, and the entire mutual consent divorce can be completed in probably 1.5 months or 2 months, based on when exactly you apply. Now, coming to the second one, that is the contested divorce. Now, contested divorce basically means a single-sided divorce. Like if the husband wants to go for a divorce and he's got certain reasons for it, or any allegations for it, or which we call a legal term as grounds to file a divorce, that is what's called as a contested divorce. Now, cruelty is one of the grounds to take an example. Desertion is one of the grounds to take an example. Uh, your uh, false claims is one of the grounds for for divorce. Even extramarital affair, that comes as a ground for divorce as well. Now, in contested case, it can be either filed by the husband or it can be filed by the wife. Either ways. And there is one talk or one myth or one practice which people do by saying that if you would like to go for a divorce, you go for a divorce, and I can claim. No, there is nothing of that sort. There is nothing like if I go for a divorce, I have to ask the court. There's nothing of that sort. Even if I file a case for divorce, or even if another person files for divorce, it's the same thing. There's no difference in it. But it all depends on the person who's filing it. The burdens of proving the evidence would fall on him, the first thing. So that ways, it's just a saying that people say that if you want to go for a divorce, you can go take it. But there's no difference. It's all the same thing. Now, coming to the third one, that is judicial separation. Now, judicial separation is a process in which the court allows the couple, the husband and the wife, to stay separately without divorce legally. Now, in most of the cases in India, if we have to see, the couples stay separately without asking the court or without asking anybody, with their mutual consent, and they go separately. But at times wherein if something happens to the wife, or if the wife approaches a police station, and if the police asks where is your husband or anything of that sort, at that point in time, if you do not have this particular judgment, or if you don't have the permission from the court to stay separately, the liability or the responsibility of the well-being of the wife will automatically come on the husband. So to avoid that situation, it's always better you apply for a judicial separation, take permission from the court, and go and stay separately. Now, this staying separately also normally goes for about 6 months to 1 year. And after that, the moment it is more than a year, the application of the grounds for contested divorce, which is desertion, which is more than 1 year or more than 2 years, it is applied there and you automatically get divorced, because that itself becomes a ground. So this is judicial separation. Now, for all these three cases, that is mutual consent or contested or judicial separation, one main criteria that they have is that you need to have completed 1 year of marriage. Either you want to go for a mutual, you want to go for a contested, or even for a judicial separation. 1 year should have completed. Now, the cases which we file even before 1 year is completed would be things like annulment or restitution of conjugal rights. Restitution of conjugal rights, to take an example, it is the opposite of divorce. Though it comes in family law, uh, family law does not cover only divorce cases, but it covers even restitution of conjugal rights, wherein we talk about things like, say, for example, the husband would file a case in the court stating that I want my wife to come back and stay with me. Asking the court to reconcile is nothing but the case about restitution of conjugal rights. This is a case which comes as Section 9 in the Hindu Marriage Act, whereas your mutual consent and contested divorce is Section 13. Basis on their subsections, 13B is mutual consent and Section 13 is contested divorce. Similarly, Section 9 comes as restitution of conjugal rights. Now, in most of the cases that I have seen and I have come across, this is one of the methods what people use to avoid maintenance. Like I'll tell you how. Say, for example, the wife will file for a divorce case. Now, when you file for a divorce case, you would have certain allegations saying that he's not taking care of me, he abuses me, he harasses me, whatever. The cruelty thing comes into place. Now, when that comes into place, the wife is also eligible to file for a maintenance case in the same petition. It's an act, Maintenance Act. You can file for a maintenance petition stating that I would like to get maintenance. Now, for a counter, if the husband comes back by saying that I am ready to take care of my wife, I will not be able to give you maintenance, which is in the monetary terms, but however, I am ready to take care of my wife, then the maintenance will not be ideally accepted. However, that particular maintenance, if the wife is claiming, she has to fight for it. But nor naturally, ideally, maintenance, what it means is that, like the way we said, food, shelter, and house, and taking care of the wife, that is the main thing, or taking care of the spouse is is the thing what we call as maintenance. Since those four things are not present when the separation happens, those four things will be compensated in terms of money. That is what is your maintenance ideally. Now, I'll explain even in detail when I come to that particular slide of maintenance. Now, going to the next slide, which is annulment. Now, I did talk about annulment with respect to having annulled by saying that it is one of the ways in which it can be filed within 1 year of divorce. Now, annulment is one which way wherein even if you file it within 1 year, this happens when the particular marriage itself is a void marriage. It is a marriage which is not supposed to happen as such. Like if there was a misrepresentation of the person, if there was certain facts which was hidden about the person, like the the boy or the girl was physically not healthy, or he was impotent and was hid, or he had already been to jail and there was hid, or uh, if the person is a transgender, things like that. So if those are the things, any fraud happens with respect to the marriage, at that point in time, when the information is concealed within one person and later the other person gets to know, they can any day file for a police complaint. At that point in time, the same case will be referred to the family court in the form of an annulment, and the entire marriage gets annulled, or it becomes a void marriage. Now, the main difference between an annulment and a divorce is that when a couple gets divorced, they're called as divorcees. But when in an annulment, when the marriage gets void, they are called as singles. It's equal to say that marriage never happened at all. That is called annulment.
Varun sir, since you are talking about this annulled marriages, there's a question uh, which is asked by the audiences. Marriage can be annulled if the consent of either parties has been taken by the force of fraud. While fraud can be proven in most cases, how does one prove that the consent to the marriage was taken by force?
So the moment you say fraud, it comes to the police station. So when you
Yeah.
come to the police station, if the spouse or any one of the persons agrees that yes, it was done by force, by filing a complaint in the police station, by saying that this is how the court is going to react to, or my parents did ask me to force me into the marriage, then that consent will be taken in presence of the police authorities, and the same will be mentioned as a report in the form of FIR or charge sheet in the court, and the annulment will happen. But
So
that
is it
recording statement which is recorded should be done in the police station.
okay? So is it necessary to be a you that you have to be you have a person in your I would say from family who would say that this marriage is being forced?
If not, it would become very difficult to prove unless or until you have some recordings of a video recording or an audio recording or any that sort of an evidence. Now, if I don't have anything of that sort, all I can do is I can confront them in a police station and have it recorded as per a government document, which cannot be forged or changed, or which is not accepted in the court. Now, if I do the
Okay.
same thing in front of another mediator, that is not accepted in the court because it becomes a private body.
Okay.
Okay, so shall we move on?
Thank you. Thank you, sir. No, please
Now,
continue.
going to the next one, I did speak about this particular topic, which is maintenance and alimony. Now, most of the people do actually have a feeling by saying that okay, maintenance is always applied to the wife, and alimony is always applied to the wife. We can ask for maintenance and alimony, or we have to force the husband to pay my alimony as per my conditions and things like that. Now, there are a couple of things which I would like to tell you. First of all, maintenance can be applicable for both. It can be applied to any spouse. So it ideally means that it can be applied to the husband or it can be applied to the wife also. Even a husband who is not working can file a maintenance case by saying that I'm not working, you maintain me. That's possible. But like the way our Indian society is there by saying that how can a man ask a woman? So this stereotype thinking which is there,
Yeah.
so which is very difficult for any man to actually come out. Now it is not that it is not there in the law. Since nobody comes forward, we will not be able to do anything. We as lawyers or we as the judicial legal fraternity, we cannot go and promote men by saying that yes, you can go file a maintenance case against your wife. We cannot do that unless or until there is a case. We will not be able to do it. So if people come forward, we can help you with that. But the actual meaning, since there are many cases with respect to maintenance for the children and maintenance for the wife, so the men's maintenance usually does not come into light. This is one part of the maintenance. Now, maintenance ideally means maintaining the spouse on a monthly basis. Remuneration will be given on a monthly basis or a periodic basis, rather, basis on their expenses, what is being told. Now, maintenance for a spouse applies for on the other spouse by whatever their earnings are. One third of their earnings will be the eligibility amount for the other spouse, the opposite spouse, to ask for. Now, that amount can be given only when the spouse is not working, is not able to work, is permanently disabled or temporarily disabled, or who is not educated at all and does not have any kind of earnings. Now, this maintenance does not depend on their lifestyle. Okay. Say, for example, I had a client wherein she she came from a very rich family. Okay, so her parents were rich, her father, everyone were rich. So she used to spend almost around 50 to 1 lakh, 50,000 to 1 lakh in a month. Now
Okay.
she got a husband who was earning only a lakh in a month. Now, when she got divorced, she asked for a maintenance of almost a lakh. Now that is not possible. Just because she had a lavish lifestyle doesn't mean that she can ask the same amount from her husband. That's not possible. She can ask only what she is eligible for, which is one third of his salary, which is approximately around 25-30,000. This is what she can ask. Now, basis on the maintenance or alimony, what is being asked, the husband will can choose. Either he can give maintenance, which is monthly payments or periodical payments, or an alimony, which is a one-shot payment. Nobody can force the spouse to say that, no, I want only alimony. You cannot do that. If the husband or the wife says, no, I'm sorry, I will not be able to pay you that high, or I cannot pay you that much, you cannot force them into that one. But these days, of late, they use various methods to force them by filing false dowry harassment cases to get a compensation. But that is wrong. I mean, that's not the way. As per the law, no, that's not that. Okay, that is one part of it. Now, coming to the second part of it with respect to uh, claims and compensations. Now, maintenance or
Sir,
alimony can be applied to the. Yep, I'm sorry.
yeah.
Go ahead.
So, sir, keep like we have seen the current situation of this pandemic, and we know that a lot of people are losing their jobs. So,
Hmm.
this is a very practical question coming up in the mind that given this situation and the person who has lost their his or her job has an ex-spouse who is dependent on him or her, will the court be looking into such matters?
Well, the court will look into such matters by giving a relaxation of the payments, but not waiver.
Okay. So,
They can
in
only
this
give a relaxation
relaxation,
saying that in this pandemic
yeah.
situation, you're not able to pay, fine, I can understand. But that doesn't mean that this entire 3 months is waived off,
Okay.
because this is not a permanent solution. Now we had a lockdown for 3 months. Now again, we've regained our work back. So I cannot say that you waive off 3 months, I'm not going to pay you, because where is the wife going to have? What about the child? What about the child's education? That cannot be done. They can only keep it temporarily paused for some time, but it's not that it is completely waived off. They have to repay it again.
Okay. And sir, is this maintenance or alimony is only paid once the spouse have the custody of the children, or is it irrespective of the children custody?
It has nothing to do with custody of the child. Now,
Okay.
mother is the natural custodian of every child. Okay. For
Yeah.
every child, mother is the natural custodian. Now, once the divorce happens, the father has to file for a custody of a child. He has to file it in the court saying that I need custody. Now, he will be able to get custody only when he has to prove the court that he is better than the mother. That the mother is
Okay.
not proper, mother is not earning much, she is negligent, she has certain allegations against having an affair or anything, she's mentally unsound, or she's into depression or something like that. Only then he'll get the rights over the child. Or if the mother herself says, no, I don't want to take care of the child, you take care of the child. So that is when he'll get the custody of the child. Until then, he will not get it. Now, this
Okay.
is from the time the child is born up till 13 years. After 13 years, when the child is 13 years, the choice will go to the child once, whether he wants to stay with the father or the mother. If he chooses father, it will automatically go there. So that is one way how a husband can get the rights. But ideally, things don't happen. And coming to the maintenance part, he cannot, even if the mother gets remarried,
Mm-hmm.
the the maintenance of the child will continue, and it is the responsibility of the father. He cannot say no, I will not do it.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. Yeah. Please continue.
So coming to the next one, that is the child custody. Okay, now I did talk a lot about divorce, I did talk about a lot about maintenance, I did talk about a lot about child custody as well. Now coming to the child custody usually comes into the picture wherein the father applies for a child custody when during certain things with respect to when the child is does not have a parental control, or when parental hand over there, or if the mother passes away. Now, normally in situations, what we see is, say, there's a girl in the house and she gets married and she goes to the husband's house. That is her matrimonial home. When she, because of some unnatural reason, there's a death in the family. The wife, the daughter actually passes away, and there's a child. Now, normally people think, okay, now the child is there, the husband cannot take care, he's a man. So, as the legal guardian, the girl's parents come into picture. But no, as per their family, it is the first legal heir of the child is the father. If the father is also not there, then he'll come to the mother's parents. But at that point in time, even if he knows, but for the matter of fact, the mother is not there, child is there, for on record, for him to become the custodian, he has to file a case in the court under Guardians and Wards Act of 1890. As per this act, he has to file, the court will approve him as the guardian, natural custodian, and then he can take the child under his custody. Now, when I say under his custody or under the child's custody, ideally, uh, when the couple is not divorced yet and there is a child, if you want to apply for a passport, for an example, in the passport, the father's name is very important. They ask for the father's name. But when you get divorced and the mother becomes the custodian, there, when the passport is applied, when you show the divorce certificate or the divorce decree, it will automatically state that the father is not needed. The mother will come into picture. Now, if the father takes the custody and he gets a court decree, a court order saying that I'm the national custodian, the mother is not asked for at that point in time. It will automatically inform the father. Now, these are the places where you actually require to show the proof. These are the places where it is known to show the proof. Apart from that, there's no other place that they will ask for. The governmental documents are valid in such ways. Okay, going to the next one, you have something called as marriage registration and special marriage. Okay, most of us, we have this particular contention by saying that when the marriage happens, we have to get it registered. We have to make sure that the registration happens. I said, yes. I mean, see, if, for the matter of fact, if you have to take, it is mandatory for the marriage to be registered. But this mandatory of marriage to be registered came recently. It came in 2014. Prior to that, there was nothing called as marriage registration as such. Even if I take for the matter of my parents' marriages or anything, they weren't registered. So there is no point to say that since the marriages are not registered, it is not valid. It is valid. Custom marriage is done, so it is valid. So, but since the registration is not done, it's not that it is not valid. Now, of late, this registration is required when you go abroad, when you want a address proof in your name, or when You have to show it in your company is saying that yes, you are married legally. For that particular purpose, they get the marriage registration done. But marriage registration as such, if I have to tell you, there are two types of marriage registration. One, I go to a marriage registration office, take an appointment from them. I'll wait for 30 days and then I'll get a appointment and then we'll get married. That is one way of getting married, which is a typical marriage registration. Now, I can also go to a temple, get married, get the custom relations and everything, and then again get registered. That is also a marriage registration. Both are valid, but the procedures are different.
Okay.
It is the usage is the same thing, but the procedures are different. It's the same thing. I can either go there and take a consent and wait for 30 days and get an appointment, or I can go get married in a temple and get it registered. Both are same. Both are marriage registrations itself. But however, in a Hindu marriage, if you get married, marriage registration is not compulsory unless or until you really require it for the passport or the visa or what any other particular things that you wanted. It is not mandatory for that. It's not required for it. But however, if I go in for a intercaste marriage, say a Hindu gets married to a Muslim or a Hindu gets married to a Christian, their marriage registration is a must.
Okay.
That is a must. It is very much important.
Sir, we have a question over here. With the Indian society growing gradually, do you think that the Special Marriage Act should make space for some sex marriages and transgender marriages? In many rural areas of different parts of India, child marriages continue to take place. Won't it be compulsory registration for marriages help in bringing down such cases?
Yeah, it does. It helps because though the Indian law says that for voting, your rights is after 18 years, which become a major. But for your marriage, if the girl is 18, the boy should be 21. So because of that, your child marriages come down. So that is one of the main reasons why since 2014, they made it mandatory for every marriage to be registered. But for every marriage to be registered, it's not that both the couple take appointment, wait for a month and things like that. They can do the other way also. They can get married and get registered. Actually, in most of the cases, if you see in the northern India, like in places like West Bengal or in Orissa, things like that, when they have an engagement, they'll get their marriage registered, and after 2 or 3 months, they get their marriage reception done, reception of the entire cultural customs way. There, they get marriage registered at the time of engagement itself. But down here in the south, the practice is not that way. They actually get the engagement done, they get the marriage done, and then they go for registration. So there is a different way, but it's all the same thing. So when you actually handle cases from all over India, you can see a trend as to how things work in a different way. See, like here, dowry harassment is very common. Up north, there's something called as Kanyadan, which is very common. Kanyadan in south is not there. So you have different ways how people practice the marriages. But when it all comes to the court, it goes as per the law. It's all one thing. It's you cannot have two different things and saying no. I'm from North India, it's a different thing. I'm from South, it's a different thing. There's nothing like that. It's all the same.
Okay, great.
Okay, so going to the next one. The next topic would be domestic violence. So domestic violence, I speak about throughout the topic and all that. Now, domestic violence, like I said in the beginning, it is a combination of family case and a criminal case. So normally in a criminal case, what happens is you have the two parties, when we call it the petitioner and respondent, what we call in a family case also, you have the same kind of a concept in domestic violence case also. Even here, the petitioner is called as the petitioner and the respondent is called as the respondent itself, or the plaintiff or the defendant, either ways. But however, in a criminal case, it is not the case. In a criminal case, the petitioner, that is the person who files the case, is called as a complainant, wherein the person who's done the wrong things is called as an accused. Now, an accused, if he does not appear to the court, automatically the court will issue a non-bailable warrant. It's not like every court I would go there and I'll ask the court saying that please issue, Your Honor, please issue a non-bailable warrant against the accused. No, I don't have to say that. The moment he's not there, it'll automatically go as a non-bailable warrant. But however, in domestic violence, it is not even mandatory for the respondents to even appear to the court. So it is more of a relaxed way. Similar, just like the way in a family court we get a stage, what you call as mediation, to settle the matter. Even in domestic violence, we get a stage which we call as to settlement. Now, domestic violence cases are usually filed for your physical, sexual, psychological, economic violence that is committed by one of the family members or the intimate partner. That is what is your domestic violence. There's nothing different that I cannot actually say. Normally, in most of the cases, whenever a person files for a contested divorce basis on cruelty, the domestic violence ingredients will be mentioned in the same contested divorce. But if a case of contested is filed, again a case of domestic violence is filed, again a case of dowry harassment is filed, looking at the three cases, all I can say is the person wants to just harass you. Okay. We do
Sir,
have
since
this
you,
particular logic and we do have this complaint.
yeah,
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
yeah, no issue. So please continue. I just, we had a question since you mentioned in your PPT that the law does not treat men as victims of domestic violence. So we have a very, relatable question over here that men are victims to domestic violence as well. So isn't it time that we bring in gender neutrality to the domestic violence laws?
The law is there. We don't have cases.
Okay.
Nobody
Okay.
comes front.
Okay.
It's like
So
maintenance case.
So I think there is a lack of awareness somewhere, because I think there might be cases where the men are victims, but I think there is a stereotype that men are strong. That stigma is there somewhere in our society, that they does not come and upfrontly
See,
speak
men
about
think a lot by to say that, yeah, see, like for example, you have this particular thing called as MLC. Okay, MLC means medico legal case. Medico legal case arises when I'm hurt because of my wife harassing me and I go to the hospital. The doctor will give me a medico legal case and write down the actual reason what exactly hurt me. Okay, now this is nothing but domestic violence. This is a proof of domestic violence. Now, this particular thing is usually not done because men have this stereotypical fear of saying that I got beaten by a woman, I got beaten by a girl.
Yes.
How can I say
Yeah.
that out? If you're still in that mode of saying, how can I say that out? This is how it's going to be. Law is there, but you're not coming forward. So we cannot, like I said, we cannot force people to say, come outside, we are there for you. Even how much ever awareness we do, if people are not coming out, we cannot sit and speak out in slogans or actions and things like that. Because as per the law itself, a lawyer cannot market himself, nor the law can market themselves. And not being aware of the law is not an excuse. Law is open to everybody. You can read it, you can study, you can practice. But no one is saying that no, law is limited only to the judges and the lawyers. You're not supposed to read. There's nothing like that. And nowhere in the law does it say that every time you go to the court, you should have a lawyer. You have physical appearance, you have party appearance also. But why do people take lawyers? No one's asking us. No one's saying that, no, you have to go with a lawyer. Just because you don't have the time, just because you don't have that tact of handling cases with other lawyers, that is the reason you handle a lawyer. But it's not that you're not supposed to be known and you're not supposed to be aware of the law and only I'm supposed to be aware. There's nothing of that sort. There is another concept called party in person. You can go and stand there. You can go fight your own case.
Okay.
But yeah, like you said, the stereotypical way of thinking of saying that lawyers know everything, we don't know anything, we're not aware. So, again, just to tell you, not being aware of the law is not an excuse. It is not accepted anywhere in the law.
Indeed, sir.
Okay, now moving on.
Said. Yeah.
Now moving on from domestic violence, I have this particular question. Now, where does family law ideally apply? Okay, family law does apply in divorce cases. Your divorce cases come under family law. Your maintenance alimony comes under family law. Your child custody, guardians and wards act come under family law. Cases with respect to property declarations between husband and wife also comes in family law. Like, for example, I take the property is in my name. My wife takes a loan. Since the loan is in her name, she puts in the money. We build an entire house. Even I put little bit of money, which is not recorded anywhere. Tomorrow, if the wife claims saying that that house is mine, that case can be filed saying that the property has to be declared that it is in my name. That case will be filed in the family court. It comes under family law. Any dispute for that matter, which comes in between the husband and the wife, be it as property, be it as money, be it is divorce, when they are married, it comes under family law. So when we say family law, normally we only talk about divorce, we talk about maintenance, we talk about child custody.
Yeah.
Only these are the main things which come. But ideally, family law contains this also. Even this part of it comes in family law. And even for the matter, if anything happens with respect to maintaining our parents, that also comes in family law. Cruelty against parents, that's one of the grounds for divorce. Restitution of conjugal rights, reconciling the couple, that is also family law. Divorce, domestic violence does not come in family law, that's the criminal case. But however, it is similar, it is linked. That's and dowry harassment is a pure criminal case.
Yeah. So in the domestic violence itself, we have another question that during this lockdown, there has been a rise in number of domestic violence instances reported officially. So despite strict laws being there, why don't most of such acts get reported?
Because people are not aware as to where to report them. That is one thing. Second of all, we do have women commission, we do have family counseling forums wherein people call them. There is one particular forum called Vanita Sahayavani in Bangalore, Commissioner's office, who actually help such couples who are finding it difficult. They call in for counselors. They have expert counselors to actually help them out. And these are the things which do not go to the court. It only stays within the compound of the commissioner's office, among the counselors itself. It does not go to the court even. If you feel that no, this is not working out, I want a divorce, they will say, okay, fine, you can go to the court and you can get a divorce for yourself. But until then, it will still be there. And one more thing that I'd like to tell, most of the people have this particular notion. If you get a notice or divorce notice or any kind of a notice from a lawyer, it does not mean the case is filed. It only means that the case is not yet filed. But if you get a notice from the court, it means that the case is already filed. You don't have to do negotiations with the lawyer. There's no use. Whatever you do it in the court.
Sir, from your what exactly you said right now, I have a question in my mind. You mentioned that many of the people don't know where to report such instances or where to go for the redressal. So if you can share, any points, some points regarding this point, so that our audiences who are lacking with the information, through this medium, get to know about the solution for the same.
See, you have many forums. I mean, to be honest, Lawyer is one of them. Lawyer is one of them wherein people can approach them, and you not only educate people, but also you have a cluster of lawyers who you can get connected to. So it is easier. That is one particular medium or one particular platform where you can actually go to. But if you would like to go for a particular platform saying that where I need counselors, I need ready-made counselors, I need to use force for my husband to come or my spouse to come, then I would suggest you go to the commissioner's office, which you have the Vanita Sahayavani, because they will issue a police notice to the spouse to appear there. If the police notice is ignored and he doesn't come, they'll send a police jeep to pick him up. But however, if I'm not saying that you cannot approach any other people, but however, if you approach me or if you approach any other platforms, we cannot use police force on you because we are individual people or we are corporate people. We will not be able to use. But however, we can help you to use a certain things to get your solution done. Your counseling can be done, your advisory can be done, your consultation can be done. It will help you protect your own interests with respect to whatever decisions that you're going to make. because every decision you're going to make, you need to consult a particular forum or a lawyer to understand that what can be anticipated basis on the decision that you're taking, and that can be told only by an expert who's been handling in such cases. This is
Thank you.
a few things which.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Yeah. So any questions from the audience?
Okay, so are we done with the presentation, sir?
Yeah, we are done with the presentation.
Yeah. So yes, we can open the platform for Q&A session now. I request you to stop share the screen, sir, and we'll be taking the questions from the live audiences now. Yeah. So, sir, there is a question from Naz Sheikh. Can you discuss any case law where the wife have given alimony to the husband?
I have a case. When you have to talk about a case law, it is about citations. So if you have to talk about citations, I need to understand what exactly is the particular case that you're talking about, because it depends on every state is differs again. Now, if you have a reporter's judgment in this Supreme Court, then yes, I can cite it like I have it back of my hand. But again, if you have to tell me what exactly it is all about, yes, I'll be able to tell you. Now, your question, you're saying that where the wife have given alimony to the husband. Now, wife will give an alimony to the husband when the husband has proved to the court saying that he's unemployed and he's unable to work, and the wife is working, due to which I'm supposed to get the alimony. Yes.
Okay. I hope, Raj, your question has been answered by sir. If you have further queries, please write it in the Q&A session itself. Sir, from another attendee, we have a question. Can a woman ask for maintenance in the Section 125 CRPC and Hindu Marriage Act simultaneously in different courts? One one is filed in family court and another is JMFC court.
Yeah, you can. You can ask. Asking is not a problem. But when it comes to giving, no, when all the courts get to know that you've been filed in different cases, compensation is only one. You will not get 3 compensations.
So which one would be preferred first, sir? The one where she went first and filed the case. Is there any criteria for this?
Say for example, there's a case which I would like to share. This was a case which was filed in for contested divorce case in family court. Similarly, domestic violence court also it was filed, wherein they asked for compensation there and here. Now, maintenance cannot be split to say that the husband harassed me and hit me. That is the reason I need 20,000 rupees. So now I'm not able to live without my husband. So I need another 20,000 rupees. So that will not happen. So ideally, when you file a divorce case and a domestic violence, when they call in for a mediation, they'll club both the cases and they'll call in for a mediation and settle it one shot. So the maintenance will be one. Your claim can be 2 different reasons that you're actually doing, but your compensation will be only one. You cannot do two things at the same time.
Okay. I hope sir has answered your question. So the next question we have is from Priya. For the marriage registration, do we need to go to the court or there is a separate office?
There's a separate office. There's a separate sub-register office or a marriage registration office in every city. In that case, you just have to go appear there. There's an application form which you need to fill. And when you fill the 2 application forms, that is you and your spouse, you fill them and you submit them. At that point in time, they will call in for they will send out a notice to both the addresses. Basically, it's a no objection notice. That is, none of the family members have no objection for both of you all to get married. So once that is done, they'll give you an appointment date of after 30 days or 31 days. They'll give you one date, and on that particular date, when you go appear there, you will get married as per the legal terms.
Okay.
So there's no separate court as such. We call it as court marriage, but it is not court marriage.
Okay. Sir, there is a question in divorce section that what acts of mental cruelty provide a ground for seeking divorce by either of the spouses?
Okay. When you ask for mental cruelty, see, say for example, you go for a divorce case and you ask for mental cruelty, you cannot ideally talk only about mental cruelty and mental agony, because that is one part of harassment which you cannot prove very easily.
Yeah,
You can only
true.
say that they harassed me physically, they harassed me mentally, things like that. But you cannot write your entire petition with only harassment, harassment, harassment. So what is there in the petition apart from harassment? When you don't have proof, when you don't have anything, practically speaking, it's very difficult for you to prove it. So ideally, either the case will get dragged for more than 2-3 years, or it will get dismissed, or you might not get, or the husband will be fed up and say, okay, Baba, I'll just close this case and I'll close it. That's what
Okay.
will happen.
So any suggestion from your side you would suggest to such people?
See, whenever you go for a divorce case, to be honest with you, uh, these days, due to thanks to coronavirus, our pending cases have been increased and it will go for a longer duration, probably another 1 year extended. But uh, even otherwise, we have a lot of pending cases in which we find it very difficult for it to drag. Okay. But if you have a clear-cut mind as to what exactly do you want, you can put it across to the court saying that this is what I'm looking for, and you can finish it off, rather than filing multiple cases and having this thing in the mind saying that, oh, okay, fine, the court is not able to give me justice and the court is not able to punish him, but I will make sure that I will harass him. No, you harass him is equal to harassing yourself,
Yeah.
because the longer the court trial goes, the longer even you have to stay with the court. It's not that you will stay at home and the court will run automatically. It won't. The moment you stay at home, the court will stay for 1 month or 2 months and automatically the case gets dismissed. So there's no use of it. So rather than
Okay.
building up on cases and making bigger, you rather settle and close it off faster.
Sir, as we also heard in the news lately, there's a very I would say, the person is very much updated about the news that he asked about this. Given that with the changing times and circumstances, laws also change to adjust to changing society. Do you think it is time to revise the minimum age of marriage for a bride from 18 years to 21 years?
See, I I agree with your point that as per whenever there is a change, we need to get upgraded and all that. But the law does not upgrade basis on the change in the society. The law gets amended basis on the cases which arise in the society. Only then we can change. Now, for example, extramarital affair.
Yeah.
Earlier, when it was there, we had this particular law which said that if a man has extramarital affair, it is a criminal case, he'll go to jail. But however, if a spouse, that is the girl, has extramarital affair, that is no offense at all. For that one, it didn't change as per the society. It changed as per the PIL, public interest litigation, which was filed against it to have a criminal case filed against the wife as well. But looking at the situation, if that happens, the basis on the trend, every woman has to go to jail and every man has to go to jail, it might come into picture. So to
Okay.
avoid that, they just changed the criminal part of the action which has to be taken to the husband as ground for divorce. Now, with respect to extramarital affair, it is still wrong, but it is just a ground for divorce. It is not punishable by law, even for a
Okay.
wife and even for a husband. So people have this assumption saying that, oh, okay, now extramarital affair doesn't have this law to say that I'm not punishable, so it becomes legal. It is not legal. It is still illegal, but it's just a ground for divorce.
Okay. So the next question we have is, if a married woman want to file domestic violence against her matrimonial family, but not want to get divorced, then also women get maintenance.
Yeah, you can. Yes, you can.
Okay.
If you, there is no law which says that if you want maintenance, you have to file for divorce. You can still file for maintenance and and be married itself. There's no law which says that. You can still do that.
Okay. Sir, there's a question. What types of customary marriages are permitted under the Hindu Marriage Act?
Customary marriages, as in most of the, as per the Hindu customs, it is allowed. But if you feel that particular customary marriage is not proper for you, you can get a registration done.
So, what types of customary marriages are permitted? Is there any types which are permitted under
There's no types as such.
HMA?
It depends on the customs what you've been following. See, like for example, in South we have this particular practice of doing the muhurtam and then the reception. Some people do reception first and then they do the muhurtam, which happens in a span of 1 or 2 days. But if you go to the North, you have the entire marriage goes for 3 days or 4 days. When you go to Northeast, you have non-veg served in marriages. When you come down to the South with respect to the Kerala, you will have non-veg served. So we don't have this customary saying that, okay, marriage means it has to be done this way. Marriage means it has to be done the veg way. Only veg can be. There's nothing like that. Based on your custom, you can get married. There's no harm in it. But if you feel that marriage is not fulfilled to you, you can go get it registered.
Okay. So another question is very sensitive, I would say, regarding with our society. Should the Hindu Marriage Act and IPC recognize marital rape as an act of physical cruelty against the wife for seeking divorce?
Marital rape is a crime. It's an offense. It's
Okay.
not that you will only get divorced. The husband will get jailed also for that.
Okay. If both the spouses have opted for mutual divorce, however, one spouse wants to back out, what happens then?
She will withdraw her consent in the court and she'll back out.
So this will
The
not
case is
go
dismissed.
under the mutual divorce. Then it will change.
No. And then the one of the spouse has to go for contested. This happens when, say for example, a couple goes for a mutual consent. Okay, they go in for a mutual consent, and in the mutual consent they'll write, I don't have any claims, I don't have anything, I'm independent, and blah blah, whatever allegations they make. Because ideally in a mutual consent you cannot have allegations at all, because both of you are coming together for a divorce, and all you would say is you're incompatible. Now when you go to the mediation part, there if you start asking for demands, saying that no, now that I'm getting divorced from you, I want 50 lakhs, I want say 10 lakhs or 20 lakhs, that point in time it is against the petition what you have stated. So they'll be called back to the court. There, if the particular person or one of the spouse says that I am not interested for a divorce without any compensation and I would like to withdraw my consent, if they withdraw the consent, the case is dismissed then and there itself. Then an individual case filing should be, that is a contested case should be filed again.
Okay. I think with this, sir, from your experience, one person is asking whether, from your experience, have you seen anywhere that wife is giving alimony to the husband?
Yes, I have.
So
Yes,
do
I
you
have.
have a
That is a
personal
case wherein,
Yeah.
This is a case wherein the wife had interest to actually pursue her career, and she wanted to go abroad. And she was being stopped at her place for more than 4 to 5 years without working, and was asked to do the household work on purpose and intentionally threatened at every point in stage, and also blackmailed her and taken her money from her mother's place also. So due to all these things, one day she actually came out and said, I would like to go for a divorce. I would like to let go my child as well, and I want to pursue my career and go ahead. At that point in time, the husband was actually not working. He was sitting at home. So for that particular point, he raised a question of alimony, for which the wife paid an alimony of around 15 lakhs once for all, for the alimony for the child and for the husband, and she got divorced and she let go her custody also of the child.
Okay. I hope with this, sir, there are some more questions. If you say yes, I can take them. If you don't have any time constraint, yeah. Sir, Ashneet is asking, is battered women syndrome taken as a defense in India?
Depends on your evidence. It depends on your evidence. Do you have, if you have a private hospital evidence, then the same thing, if it is questioned in the court, then the court themselves will refer you one government doctor and say, get it done for me, then yes, accepted.
Okay, I hope Ashneet, your question has been answered. So the next question we have is from Rasha. What if either of spouse violates the order of district magistrate or
Restitution of conjugal rights.
Yeah, under Section 9 of the Hindu Marriage Act?
You can report it back to the court and you can take an action against it because that is violating a court order, which is an offense.
Okay. Rasha asked another question. What if either of, okay, this question is being repeated. The next question we have is, if the case of judicial separation, if the parents of mother have adopted the child, and can they still ask for maintenance for the child and the mother both by the father?
Okay, I didn't understand this question because.
Okay, can I repeat? Should I repeat?
Yeah, please.
If in the case of judicial separation, the parents of mother have adopted the child, and can they still ask for maintenance for the child and mother both by the father?
Okay, now in this particular question, if I have to say, when you go for an adoption, if the mother adopts a child, only the mother will adopt the child, not the father. Even if if a marriage has happened with respect to, say, a husband and a wife, now they decide, okay, fine, I would like to adopt a child. If the mother adopts the child, only the mother is adopting the child, not the father. The adoption deed has to mention both mother and father have adopted. Now, in the case of the question which has been asked, if the mother has adopted a child and then they ask for a maintenance, if the maintenance case or the divorce case is filed after the adoption, then yes, she'll get it. If the divorce case is filed before the adoption and they're already divorced and then she adopts one child, no, she can't.
Okay. Thank you so much.
She can claim, but the ground won't be there.
Okay. So I think there are a few more questions which can be taken in the mail by you, so since we have time constraint with us. Thank you so much, sir, for your insightful. Your insights on this particular topic. There are so many points which as a generic person, or the I would say being a resident of India, I was not aware of, and certainly many people out there are also not aware about those laws which actually help people out there. But lack of awareness, I would say, make it difficult to get their legal rights, or I would say
also thanking you for your PPT and the content which you shared today. Any last or closing words by you, sir?
Well, closing words are all I would say is, it's a difficult part to say this for a lawyer, but I would say divorce is not a game. It's not a trend. It's not a practice what we are following. It is, see, a marriage is a very religious thing, which two people get married, two families get married, but divorce is just a paperwork. Okay, so don't decide over your ego for a divorce. It is ideally not good. And as a lawyer, as a lawyer, I've seen many cases wherein people actually have come back and stayed even after getting divorced, thinking that it is only just a matter of ego, saying that why should I go out? Why should I listen to him? Correct, true. I'm not saying that, but even if you bend down, there's nothing wrong that's going to happen. So divorce is not actually a good thing, but yeah, if things are going really out of the hand, yes, that is one of the options.
Thank you so much, sir, for your
you're welcome.
Thank you so much. I would like to thank Lloyd for organizing such an amazing webinar on such a critical, I would say, sensitive topic in our society. And with this, we would like to close this session. Thank you all for your
Thank you.
presence.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.